Cheers. Um, Someone asked me recently, what is wokeism? What does it mean to be woke? Um, I'm not woke, so I can't give a dispassionate answer, and I can't really define what I qualify as a mental pollution uh, without a touch of contempt. Uh, but here are a couple of observations. They're not scientific observations. You can probably Google woke and get a better definition. But this is what I call a constat, a general sense, what the French call un constat. Um, so wokism to me is this fashionable trend of tarnishing those whose views you oppose with such labels as racist, xenophobe, phallocrat, reactionary, Islamophobe, etc. It's essentially arrogating yourself the arrogance of legislating what is right and what is wrong, and magistrating who is righteous and who is immoral, except that as a woke person, you're neither a magistrate nor a legislator. Um, Wokeism is your ability to depict yourself as a perennial victim, even as you are manifestly a victimizer, a bullying, virtue signaling, anti Judeo Christian values warrior, because Judeo Christian civilization is Christian and male and white and heterosexual and therefore evil. Wokeism is, uh, again, my opinion, it's an assault on the most basic of human characteristics, the tool of the repository of millennia of human history. So in other words, wokeism is an assault on language because language, or some language, is gendered, and therefore it is racist. Wokeism is in sum anti-culture, anti-history, anti-language, anti-gender, anti-nature, anti-human, because again, humanism is male, Christian, and white. Wokeism is also rabidly anti-religion, but only as long as the religion you are anti is not Islam, because taking Islam, a non-white, non-Christian, and obviously non-male religion, taking it to task would be a plain racist thing to do. That is, in sum, wokeism as I see it, a toxic collective closing of the human mind, closing it to anything the young, historically illiterate, gluten-free Starbucks sipping fashionistas of our times deem objectionable. Wokeism is also an insidious alliance of a blinkered leftist intelligentsia, a lobotomized ideological media, and a politicized academy. Those three are complicit, in my view, in a destructive exercise, assaulting common sense and critical thinking. What might have begun initially as a noble, egalitarian, utopian endeavor, some wokist causes are, in my view, good. They're libertarian, feminist, anti-patriarchal, anti-colonial. So what began initially as perhaps a noble endeavor turned into a diabolical, destructive beast, an infernal machine programmed to destroy history, destroy values, ethics, culture, nations, families, peoples, language. So, in a sense, it is the erasure of all that might remind us of our past, our history, our culture, our system of ethics. Just like the communists destroyed the bourgeoisie, the wokists today, the successor of the communists, they are destroying the white heterosexual history of the West. Soon the assault will begin targeting our museums, our music, our Churchills and de Gaulle's. Wait. And soon the memorials and statues will begin coming down. Just the way our bastions of knowledge and history, our again, languages and literatures and universities are being assaulted. There's no nature, the wokists tell us. Nature is a habit, a social construct, a white, male, heterosexual, Western Christian construct, and therefore it is an oppressive construct. Now, based on the preceding, we are not born male or female, as we are told by the male heterosexual construct. We become male and female. That's wokism in all its glory. And the word itself says it all. Woke, the word woke, is supposedly a variant of the noun awake, connoting alertness and awareness, except that saying alert or aware would be unwoke, because being woke is mounting an assault on the very language receptacle of our accretions of reason and common sense and family and culture and the natural world. So we don't say awake or aware, but it's better to say woke. So, in a way, sapping language. This is ultimately the bequest of French folks, people like Derrida and Foucault and Deleuze and Lacan, in my view, whacked out psychoanalysts and philosophers whose controversial work, what American disciples of this bunch called the French theory, their work today dominates thinking at American universities. Incidentally, this work has been deemed, quote, fashionable nonsense and superficial erudition and incoherent pseudoscientific gibberish by some American scholars who are critics of Lacan and company. Even Noam Chomsky, not exactly a friend of the West, not a friend of white heterosexual Western patriarchy, even he described Lacan as, quote, an amusing and perfectly self-conscious charlatan, end quote. Now, all those folks proposed that all that we deem natural is in fact social, that all is construct, that all construct is white, phallocratic, Western, heterosexual, Christian, and therefore that all constructs, in other words, all that defines culture, civilization, family, nation, and all that is language, literature, reason, biology, nature, etc., all ought to be torn down, crumbled, deconstructed. I'm reminded here of the January 2nd, 2021 prayer inaugurating the 117th Congress of the United States, which concluded with the invocation, Amen, as all prayers are concluded, but added to it, a woman. Therefore, normalizing the deconstruction of language precisely to conform to this mounting assault on common sense. Those of us who aren't lobotomized instantly may remember that the word amen is an Aramaic Hebrew word issuing from the common Semitic root amen, for truth, connoting trustworthiness and support and confirmation, hence the English equivalent sometimes, or the connotation let it be, ending a prayer with let it be, not the Beatles song. Amen, therefore, and not a gendered word, referring to neither man or woman, is for wokist reasons gendered. But seeing how such words and notions as man and woman, as well as mother, father, husband, wife, and the rest, are also themselves being assaulted and discouraged, even in Congress, it seems, even at university, one might understand the PC righteousness of now concluding a prayer with amen and a woman. Again, wokism as fashionable nonsense. This is ultimately the monumental sapping of everything. This means that nothing exists anymore, that everything is subject to construction and consequently deconstruction. Thus, everything gets destroyed. Everything from history to memory to value systems and ethics and language and the rest of human structures. And given that the Western university is a carrier and transmitter of Western values, meaning again, white, European, Christian, heterosexual, patriarchal, phallocratic values, that universities becomes game for and subject of deconstruction. This is a serious matter not only for our Western university, but for all universities that have found value in this Western model, copying its principles, its curricula, its administration, its teaching and research methods. Even non-Western universities are run by scholars and researchers and administrators who are themselves either trained at Western universities or are trained by native scholars and mentors who are themselves the product of Western institutions. And from its early days, since the days of the Athenian Academy, this Western university has maintained itself under autonomous laws all its own as a beacon of inquiry and knowledge production and knowledge dissemination and chafing, your brains against somebody else's brains and in a way unaffected by the outside world, unaffected by ideological and political activism outside of the walls of the academy. So the academy became a workshop of knowledge and construction and transmission, as it were, not a quarry of deconstruction. And again, I don't want folks to get me wrong. I think there is some value to wokism. For instance, educators today are being asked to adjust their teaching in areas of research to accommodate transgender and racial and other sensitivities, and that in itself is a value, and educators have a responsibility to valorize and transmit those values. But when, say, the mathematics and natural sciences begin being viewed as the outcome of Western heterosexual white male thought systems, biology ceases being a natural structure but a social construct, and that, to my sense, is a problem because it suggests that nature and the natural sciences become denatured, become illegitimate constructions, necessitating being transgendered and deconstructed. And this thus becomes the new virtue of humanity, a kind of transhumanism being advanced by woke human illiteracy, feigning progressivism and illiteracy, aimed at replacing the supremely literate humanism of our humanist forefathers, replacing them with an incoherent transhumanism. And I want to open parenthesis here and read you sort of a definition of what is meant by transhumanism. And I'm going to paraphrase the French philosopher Michel Onfray, who defines transhumanism as opposed to humanism as a commercial enterprise on a cosmic scale, a commerce of organs, uteruses, a legitimization of intrauterine infanticide, where a woman's right to choose, and this is a right, and I don't think any male should touch this, but where abortions become almost equated with appendicitis. So this is transhumanism. This is Michel Onfray's definition: a negation of human nature, a gendered biology, the jumbling of identities, sexual, national, ethnic, racial, etc., and the reduction of all that exists in nature to a social construction that can and ought to be deconstructed and reconstructed at will. Interestingly, non-Western universities that have for long and continue today to draw on the traditions of the Western university seem unaffected by our self-inflicted wounds. What's social to them remains social. What's biological is still recognized as biological, unconcerned and unruffled by our compulsions for safe spaces and accommodating learning to personal sensitivities. So I'll conclude and say that my brain vomited this rant because I was asked the question, but also because I am personally and intellectually committed to continuing, and emotively, I should say, also committed to continuing the Western tradition of thinking, the ability to defend our semantic liberties and avoid intellectual policing. I would like us also to continue advancing the notion of the mission of learning, the mission of a university, if you will, being the formation not of victims, but of thinking individuals and families and citizens, humane and humanist intellectuals, not the formation of constructs, the formation of compassionate, decent, thinking members of our human community, not nihilist, deconstructionist warriors who aren't even able to comprehend basic math and algebra and biology and writing, but yet are all too willing to destroy all of the above. This, to me, is indistinguishable from vandalism. But perhaps the woke will soon teach us that vandals are iconoclasts, that lobotomies lead to illumination. And that, my friend, is my definition of woke.